This video is not for everyone. It's not for the ones who play it safe. It's not for the ones who follow the rules of this world without question. This is for the chosen. If you've ever felt ashamed for not having a job, if you've ever looked around and wondered why your path seems so different, so isolated, so invisible, if you've walked through life carrying a fire that burns so deep, yet no one seems to understand, then stop scrolling, because this message is not random. It's confirmation. You're not lazy. You're not behind. You're not cursed. You're being positioned. You're not in pause mode. You're in divine activation. God didn't forget you. He didn't abandon you. He hid you. He protected you from the noise, from the system, from everything that would have limited what He planted inside you. And now, the silence is breaking. The fog is lifting. And heaven is releasing a decree that will make every closed door make sense. From zero to millionaire, without a job. Not because of hustle, not because of connections, but because of divine assignment. You're about to realize that the path that looked like failure was actually favor in disguise. So before we go deeper, like this video to align your spirit with this prophetic truth. Subscribe if you haven't, because your season is shifting and you'll need every word that confirms it. And comment 99 below, not just as a number, but as a code of completion, because this marks the end of your wilderness season and the beginning of your supernatural release. Stay right here. What you're about to hear might explain everything you've survived up until now. Let's make something clear. God didn't pull you out of the system to humiliate you. He didn't leave you without a paycheck to punish you. He disconnected you to reposition you. Because where He's taking you, a resume won't open the door. Your LinkedIn profile won't qualify you. And no amount of networking will get you in the room. Because you're not called to the room. You're called to build the house. You weren't laid off. You were lifted out. Listen carefully. Some of the rejections you faced weren't from humans. They were from heaven. Not every no was an attack. Some were divine blockades to reroute you towards something your mind couldn't yet comprehend. God saw what was coming before you ever walked into that interview. He knew the ceiling was too low. He knew the culture would kill your creativity. He knew that if they hired you, they'd try to shrink your spirit to fit inside their vision. And so, He shut the door, not to break you, but to protect the blueprint. You weren't rejected, you were recalibrated, because what you carry cannot be managed by a time clock. You weren't born to survive on minimums, you were chosen to manifest the miraculous. But let's be real, the process felt brutal. You cried, you questioned, you even cursed the silence. There were moments when you looked around and everyone else seemed to be winning by the world's standards. Their careers were taking off, their promotions were posting, their salaries were growing. And you? You were in the wilderness, with no map, no mentor, no money, just a mantle. But that's exactly where God wanted you, because before He could elevate you publicly, He had to train you privately. Isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. While others were mastering systems, you were learning how to hear the voice. While they were climbing ladders, you were being taught how to walk on water. While they were busy chasing titles, you were learning how to carry truth. Let me tell you something powerful. You weren't removed from the system because you were weak. You were removed because you were wired for something the system couldn't contain. Your assignment is not to rise within it, it's to disrupt it. To reveal what can't be tracked on charts or graphs. You're a blueprint breaker, a system shaker, a divine anomaly. And in order for heaven to release the supernatural flow over your life, it had to first disconnect you from the artificial one. Now listen, this isn't just about walking away from a job. This is about being delivered from the mentality that told you your value was tied to a title, to a desk, to a paycheck, to someone else's approval. That lie had to die, so your identity could resurrect. You are not unemployed. You are undeployed. You are in God's holding pattern, not because you're forgotten, but because what you carry is too explosive to release without proper timing. Heaven has been waiting for the exact moment when all the conditions align. And when they do, and they're closer than you think, what felt like delay will suddenly look like divine strategy, because the release that's coming to you won't make sense. Not to banks, not to business schools, not to friends or family. Why? Because it's not being sent by man, it's being sent by the kingdom. And now comes the mystery. What if everything that looked like loss was actually the setup for something no human hand could take credit for? What if your dry season was God's way of clearing the stage so your supernatural supply could arrive with no confusion about who sent it? What if being disconnected was the only way God could reroute you to the kind of wealth that doesn't run on logic? It runs on legacy. Hold that thought. Because what's coming next will change how you see every closed door you've ever cried over. Let this truth sink deep into your spirit. Heaven isn't hiring, it's anointing. While the world scans resumes, degrees, and qualifications, God scans something far deeper: your character, your heart, your capacity to obey when no one is watching. Because where He's taking you, your GPA won't matter, your title won't matter, your corporate ladder won't count. The door you're about to walk through can't be unlocked by paper credentials. Why? Because the realm you're stepping into isn't based on human selection. It's based on divine election. Listen carefully. You don't need a degree to dominate in what you were born to carry. You don't need letters behind your name to speak with supernatural authority. You don't need their yes when God already gave you a go. Let's break the illusion. The world taught you that success starts with a polished resume, but the kingdom, it starts with a refined spirit. In the system, you're hired based on what you know. In the kingdom, you're elevated based on what you carry. That's why so many doors didn't open for you, not because you weren't ready, but because what you carry would have been wasted in the wrong environment. You see, man hires based on experience, but God calls based on obedience. That's why some of your most pivotal breakthroughs didn't come after long preparation. They came after a single act of raw, radical faith. Faith to walk away. Faith to say yes. Faith to build with no blueprint. Your obedience will open more doors than your resume ever could. Because when God is behind your steps, no rejection can stop your rise. Some of you have spent years in frustration, feeling like you had to prove your worth to your family, to society, even to yourself. But here's the truth they never told you. You were already approved. Before you ever got the rejection email, before you ever sat in the interview room, before they ever glanced at your qualifications, heaven had already stamped your name with favor. Because this isn't about position, it's about posture. And God exalts those who know how to bow before they rise. Let's go deeper. Have you ever asked yourself why certain people with fewer qualifications seem to thrive, while those with endless experience are still stuck? It's not about what's on paper, it's about what's in the spirit. Favor isn't fair, because favor isn't earned, it's assigned. God doesn't choose the most polished, He chooses the most prepared to surrender. David wasn't chosen because of a warrior resume. He was chosen because of wilderness obedience. Moses wasn't hired by Pharaoh. He was commissioned by fire. And Jesus, He wasn't born in a palace. He was born in a stable to prove that greatness doesn't need glamour to be global. So stop shrinking to fit their checklist. Stop editing yourself to look hireable. You were never meant to be hired. You were meant to be launched. You don't need validation. You need activation. And the moment you realize that, you'll stop waiting to be picked and start walking like the assignment you already are. Let me speak directly to your spirit now. You don't have to chase their platforms. You are your own platform. You don't have to beg for opportunities. You are the opportunity. Because what's coming to you next, the elevation, the visibility, the wealth, the reach, won't be because of who you know, but because of how deeply you trusted when no one was clapping. Some of the most powerful people on this earth right now don't have awards on their walls. They have scars in their souls. Not because they performed, but because they endured. And God is about to reward that. Not because you worked harder, but because you believed deeper. So let the world keep asking for credentials. Let them chase applause. Let them update their LinkedIn. You, stay hidden, stay faithful, stay obedient. Because your assignment is already in motion, and when it arrives, it will be too big, too fast, and too undeniable for anyone to claim it was a coincidence. Get ready, because in the next part, you're going to discover why so many people misunderstood you, and why that was the proof you were never meant to blend in. Let's be honest. You've walked into rooms and felt like you didn't belong. You've been in conversations where your silence said more than your words. You've tried to explain your calling, your fire, your process, only to be met with blank stares or forced smiles. But hear this loud and clear. That was never dysfunction. It was never a flaw. It was divine design. You weren't misunderstood because something was wrong with you. You were misunderstood because something is uncommon within you. Chosen ones are rarely recognized by the world because their very presence interrupts what the world is used to. From a young age, you felt set apart. Not better, just different. While others celebrated fitting in, you always carried a quiet knowing. I'm not like them, and I'm not supposed to be. Let that truth breathe. You weren't born to climb their ladder. You were born to build your own, on ground they didn't even believe could hold weight. That's why no matter how hard you tried to adapt, to blend, to be normal, it never worked. Because what's inside of you is too disruptive to dilute, too sacred to water down, too powerful to package. They couldn't understand your silence, because they never heard what heaven whispered in your secret place. They couldn't understand your fire, because it wasn't meant to warm a room. It was designed to ignite revolutions. You are not a flame. You are a wildfire, and wildfires don't ask permission to burn. Let's go deeper. The reason they pulled away from you wasn't because you were too much. It was because your presence revealed how little they were willing to become. Your growth exposed their comfort. Your movement challenged their stagnation. Your vision threatened their excuses. You weren't sent to conform. You were sent to confront. And that makes people uncomfortable, even people you love. It's hard. Being chosen costs. You lose invitations. You lose relationships. You lose acceptance. But what you gain? Alignment. With heaven. With your purpose. With the version of yourself that's not domesticated by the world, but fully activated by God. There's a reason why, no matter how far you tried to run from it, the calling kept chasing you. You could try to downplay it, bury it, ignore it. But the fire never went out, because you were never meant to fit their mold. You were forged in the fire of your difference. The system rejected you because the system couldn't control you. Let that hit. They couldn't label you, so they tried to dismiss you. They couldn't manage your momentum, so they called it rebellion. They couldn't comprehend your spirit, so they tried to clip your wings. But even in their confusion, you kept rising. And here's the most dangerous part. You stopped apologizing for it. You stopped shrinking to fit. You stopped minimizing your vision. You stopped dressing your calling in something small and palatable. And the moment you did, something awakened. You stopped begging to sit at tables you were called to flip. You stopped crying over closed doors and started building kingdom-sized gates. Because you realized something that changed everything. You are not late. You are limitless. Time doesn't restrict you. Purpose governs you. Man's approval doesn't promote you. Obedience positions you. You don't follow trends. You become the disruption that births new ones. So stop looking for validation from people who were never assigned to understand your anointing. Stop seeking clarity from those who were blinded by your glow. Stop watering down your mission just to keep their comfort zones intact. You were born for more. You were built for impact. You were carved by the hand of God Himself to break cycles, to shift atmospheres, to birth movements. And now, the world is about to see what they once called too much turn into miracles on display. Because what's coming next will not be quiet. It will not be small. It will not be explainable. It will be God-sized and undeniably yours. Now pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel this truth settle in your bones. Because in the next block, you'll find out why every no, every rejection, and every shutdown wasn't a setback, but a secret reroute to something infinitely greater. Let's shatter a lie that's been tormenting you in silence. Rejection was never the enemy. It was the strategy. Every time a door slammed in your face, every time a relationship crumbled, every time an opportunity looked perfect but mysteriously fell apart, you didn't lose. You were being repositioned under divine protection. You thought you were being shut out, but in reality, God was shutting it down, because what looked like an open door would have opened up wounds you couldn't afford to bleed from. Every no was not a failure. It was a heavenly filter. God was never blocking your progress. He was blocking your self-destruction. You prayed for provision, but you didn't realize that true provision comes through consecration. Let me explain. Consecration is not a religious concept. It's not about being extra holy or separating yourself just for the sake of it. Consecration is when God hides you on purpose. He keeps you from certain platforms, certain relationships, certain decisions, not because you aren't good enough, but because what's on your life is too sacred to be exposed prematurely. Some of you felt forgotten, invisible, ignored. You wondered if the promise still stood, or if maybe you missed your moment. But here's the divine plot twist. You didn't miss it. You were being prepared for something unmissable. What God is building for you requires deep roots, and deep roots are formed in silence, in darkness, in delay. That's why it felt like nothing was moving, because everything was moving beneath the surface. Heaven wasn't ignoring you. Heaven was investing in you. You don't build skyscrapers with shallow foundations. And what you're about to step into is not a tent. It's a kingdom structure. It had to be tested, trusted, and sealed in the secret place. Let's get real. Some of the rooms you wanted to walk into so badly, you would have suffocated in. They looked glamorous. They looked God-sent. But had He let you in, you would have shrunk to survive. So He closed the door, covered the path, and left you wondering, why not me? But here's the answer you were too heartbroken to hear in that season, because you were never meant to enter through man's invitation. You were meant to enter through divine release. Some of the biggest blessings in your life won't come from the opportunities you chased, but from the ones that crashed and never called you back. Because those missed calls were actually heaven's way of dialing in a better frequency. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Closed doors don't mean closed destiny. They mean cloaked alignment. God had to close the visible path, so He could awaken your spiritual GPS. You weren't being delayed. You were being redirected into destiny's back entrance, where no competitor could find you, no hater could follow you, and no thief could steal what's already been sealed in your name. And now the time is shifting. Now you're about to understand why it took so long, why it hurt so deep, and why nothing else ever seemed to fit. Because what's coming is custom crafted, tailored in heaven, built with your DNA. And here's the final warning. What you're about to walk into can't be shaken, can't be sabotaged, can't be stolen, not because of how strong you are, but because of how covered you've been. While others were building with exposure, you were building with intimacy. While they were launching with applause, you were growing in silence with power. And now, everything is aligning. The doors they opened with effort, you will walk through by assignment. The things they had to fight for, you will inherit by favor. The rooms they chased will chase you. But wait. What if the final blessing has nothing to do with walking through an open door, and everything to do with realizing you've become the door itself? Hold that thought, because what comes next is not just about provision. It's about supernatural overflow that defies every system, every structure, and every earthly explanation. Get ready, because what's coming to you next won't follow the rules. It won't show up on a spreadsheet, it won't make sense to your accountant, it won't match your resume, and it won't be the result of your hustle. Why? Because this time, the wealth that's coming isn't from the system, it's from the Spirit. You're about to step into a miracle economy, one where doors swing open without applications, where checks arrive without invoices, where resources chase you down without you having to run. And it's not because you worked harder than others. It's not because you networked perfectly or posted the right content at the right time. It's because you did what most people don't have the courage to do. You obeyed God in the dark. That obedience? It wasn't small. It was costly. You stayed when others left. You gave when it didn't make sense. You forgave when betrayal screamed for revenge. You built when you had no blueprint, just a burden. You believed when nothing around you looked like the promise. And now, heaven is about to respond. Because what God is releasing over your life is not payment for what you've done. It's the release of what you've become. Let that sink in. You're no longer trying to earn breakthrough. You are the breakthrough. Your identity has been aligned. Your heart has been purified. And now, you're ready to carry what others would have collapsed under. This isn't hustle. It's harvest. But here's the twist. The harvest is not just financial. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's relational. It's generational. Because when God blesses a chosen one, He doesn't just give money. He releases movement. Businesses will be birthed out of your stillness. Solutions will come in your sleep. Ideas will flow like rivers, not from textbooks, but from divine downloads. This is what it looks like when heaven funds a mission. There will be provision without pitching, impact without performance, recognition without striving, overflow without burnout, because you were never called to survive by the sweat of your brow. You were called to manifest by the breath of God. You're about to receive opportunities that don't have an explanation, partnerships that feel like prophecy, revenue streams that appear out of obedience, not algorithms. Doors that open not because of what you know, but because of who's been watching you from heaven this entire time. And the people who thought you failed, who thought you wasted time, they're about to witness a financial resurrection that will silence every doubt. But don't expect it to look normal. This wealth won't be logical. It won't follow the rules of cause and effect, because favor breaks formulas. What others grind 10 years to receive, you'll inherit overnight. Not because of ego, but because of alignment. And yes, this will offend people. They will question how you went from overlooked to overflow, how you moved from isolation to influence, how someone without credentials became a conduit for abundance. And that's exactly the point, because God will always use the unexpected to reveal His unmatched authority. You are walking into a season where the supernatural will feel natural, where what once felt impossible will become your new normal, where doors that don't even exist for others will open for you, because you weren't called to compete. You were called to carry something this world has never seen. The delay wasn't denial. The wilderness wasn't punishment. It was proof you were being prepared for glory that cannot be explained by logic. And now, you're standing on the edge of manifestation. You're not waiting anymore. You're walking into it. But here's the real question. Are you ready to stop calculating and start receiving? Are you ready to let go of what makes sense so you can embrace what makes history? Because the final part of this message will not just confirm your identity. It will release the reason behind the fire and declare over your life a conclusion so powerful, you'll never look at your process the same again. This is not a motivational video. This is a prophetic decree. Every moment of silence, every door that closed in your face, every tear that hit your pillow in the dark, it wasn't wasted. It was working. You weren't being buried. You were being planted. And now, you're about to bloom in places they never expected you to survive. You were never broke. You were being built, brick by brick, test by test, battle by battle. God wasn't delaying your destiny. He was developing your authority. Because what's coming to you now requires more than gifting. It requires weight. And you've been gaining it in the quiet, in the crushing, in the consecration. Now, the time has come. From silence to strategy. From hidden to highlighted. From overlooked to overflowing. And not because you played the game right, but because you refused to betray your assignment. Hear this in your spirit. You don't need their approval. You don't need their platform. You don't even need their understanding. Because heaven already released the word from 0 to millionaire without a job. Not by hustle, by heaven, not by connections, by calling, not by chance, by chosen identity. So now it's your turn. Speak it, declare it, activate it. Type in the comments, I'm not unemployed, I'm under divine assignment. Let hell hear it, let heaven seal it, let your future align with it. Because this isn't just a message, it's a mantle. Now rise up, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. Walk like the millionaire you were born to be. Talk like the warrior you were forged to become. Move like the miracle you are. Your moment has arrived. The system can't stop it. The enemy can't block it. And you will never be the same. Go, shine, shake the earth.